Today we're going to look at how I diagnosed and fixed a howling noise in a 2020 Ford Explorer. Recently I had a 2020 Ford Explorer come in with an intermittent howling noise between 39 and 42 miles an hour. The vehicle was still under warranty. It was less than a year old and only had about 12,000 miles on it. You get anywhere above 42 miles an hour and the noise just goes away. Usually with a noise like this, you can get someone else to drive the car and you can kind of move around the interior of the vehicle and figure out where the noise is the loudest or where it's coming from. But with this one, other than when you were in the front seat, you could tell it was behind you. If you're not familiar with chassis ears, it's a set of 6 different microphones on clips, so you can attach them to different points on a vehicle and try to narrow down where a noise is coming from. They make wired or wireless ones, and I do own both sets, but I absolutely hate the wireless ones. The amount of static you get over them and the background noise is just ridiculous, so I hardly ever use the wireless ones. I have seen they started making Bluetooth ones a few years ago, and I'd be really curious to try a set of those and know how they work. They come with a set of headphones, and I usually prefer to just plug in a speaker, and the reason behind that is when it's an intermittent noise and you're not sure if it's doing it or not, you have to pull the headphones off so you can listen for the noise and then put the headphones back on to listen to where it's coming from, and it's just kind of a bigger hassle than it's worth. So I usually just use a speaker plugged into them and turn the volume up. We've removed the passenger side underbody shield to make it easier to route the cables for the microphones. We placed one microphone on the rear differential, another one on the floor pan ahead of the rear differential just to kind of pick up background noise. Another one was placed on the cross member under the drive shaft, ahead of the carrier bearing. And then the fourth one was placed on the transfer case. And then we ran the cables into the vehicle through the passenger rear window. If you've never used a setup like this with a speaker before, it would surprise most people as to how much noise bearings normally make. That is the rear differential we're listening to right now, and that is probably normal. Transfer case, floor ahead of the rear differential, cross member, floor under a second row seat, floor under a front row seat. The rear differential is definitely the loudest noise we're hearing. But the other thing you gotta realize is the vehicle was not making the noise while I was doing this recording either. If you shut the speaker off, it was perfectly quiet and normal inside the car. While I was placing microphones under the vehicle, I was doing a visual inspection, and I also shook the drive shaft by hand just to see if there was any play in the carrier bearing or the front rag joint. And I had a lot of trouble getting the car to make the noise after this, and I kind of believe it was just from that simple action of just wiggling the drive shaft a little bit. We went ahead at this point and dropped the exhaust and the rest of the shields out from under the drive shaft so we could access the drive shaft and do a better inspection. And we went ahead and put the chassis ears onto the actual carrier bearing and put the exhaust back up so we could drive it again. I probably drove the car another half a dozen times after we put the microphone onto the carrier bearing, and I got it to do it once for about 200 yards, and that was I probably racked up 60 miles on the vehicle. In the brief period it did it with that microphone on the carrier bearing, I did manage to flip the speaker to that microphone, and I really couldn't hear it through that microphone any better than the others. At this point, my gut feeling was kind of telling me it was just the drive shaft making this ringing noise, not a bad bearing or a carrier bearing or something, anything like that. Just the tube itself would ring at a certain frequency, at a certain speed. If you've ever machined a brake rotor on a lathe without putting the rubber bungee strap around it, and you've heard the ringing noise that they'll make sometimes, or the chattering noise, it's really similar to that noise. And if that is the cause of this noise, it might have something to do with the design of the drive shaft. They use a slip spline connection at the differential, and then it's kind of a long drive shaft with a carrier bearing in the middle, and then we have a rag joint at the front. The carrier bearing felt smooth, it wasn't rough, it didn't seem like the seal was dry making a squeaky noise, anything like that. At this point we went ahead and replaced the drive shaft in the vehicle, and I probably put another 40 miles on the car trying to get it to make the noise again and never did, so I believe a drive shaft fixed it. If you found this helpful or interesting, please click the like button down below. If you've seen this problem or something similar, please tell me about it in the comments section. We've got a lot of great stuff coming up, including a couple more videos on issues I've ran into in 2020 Ford Explorers, so please subscribe. As always, have a great week and take care.